Hello there, my name is Barnaby Tiny Shoes, yes that is on my birth certificate, and today we're going to be taking a first look at a brand new game called Zombie Cure Lab. Before we continue, thank you very much to Aerosoft for providing me with a key, it warms my minuscule little heart. So, what is Zombie Cure Lab? Well, according to the words which are written on Steam that I can read with my eyes, in this sandbox lab builder you'll lead a team of scientists in curing, not killing, the mindless zombies attacking your base. Cured zombies will help your scientists with expanding your facilities, gathering resources, and researching new technologies. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm overwhelmingly excited, so let's get started before I explode. The first thing we experience is Professor Powell here, popping by to remind us that the game is in early access, there is plenty more to be added, bugs can be reported using the in-game report button, and to communicate with other humans on Discord. If only I didn't have crippling anxiety. A quick glance at the settings. I'll try not to be deeply offended by the English language being represented by an American flag. Graphics I have set to ultra to see if I can start a small fire during this cost of living crisis. And music I have turned off because I'll be adding it in post like a professional. Without further ado, let's actually play the game. Oh wait, it's story time. I'll put on an accent to make it more immersive. It is currently a mystery how it happened, but one tragic day we were overrun by zombies. Anyone bitten by a zombie turned into one. Their ranks grew endlessly. They proved impervious to any attacks. And thus, in what felt like an instant, civilization fell. But in the remote reaches of northern Canada, there exists Moose Labs. In this underground facility, a group of scientists are busy researching a cure. These scientists were largely spared from the horrors of the zombie apocalypse, and so they chose to fight back with their greatest weapon, science. They have made the first steps in developing a cure for the zombie virus. Now it's time for some perilous fieldwork. The scientists of Moose Lab have gathered their bravest members. Your mission is to build a laboratory, defend it from zombie attacks, capture zombies, treat them, help them regain their humanity. It's time to cure the world. Well, if I was overwhelmingly excited before, heavens knows what I am now. Somebody better let me play this game soon, or who knows what'll happen. We now find ourselves on the world map, which feels familiar, yet also not. Plenty of different options here, including a tutorial, sandbox, and a variety of different expeditions at varying difficulties. We will be going with an easy expedition, either because I want a balanced first playthrough, or I'm pathetic. I'll leave that up to you. And just like that, we're in the game for realsies. With no consent, I already have the main storage in hand ready to place. We truly have been thrusted into the game, folks. With no knowledge of the best place for it, I picked a random spot and hoped for the best. This triggers a wonderful little fence animation, so let's just appreciate that for a moment. Once again, without warning, we're being asked to place a landing zone. With absolutely no knowledge of what the 325 different borders represent, nor the best place for it, I went with the corner. Out of flipping nowhere, a giant drone arrived with a container full of humans. My heart wasn't ready for that, and I almost died. Next, I received a notification that resonated far too much with me. At this point, my next objective is to finish my first Humvee treatment, which, let me be clear, means next to nothing to me. So, whilst I spend an obscene amount of time trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do next, let's talk about my first impressions. Firstly, this game runs beautifully, and can I just say, as it currently stands, this game is less than a gigabyte, so wonderfully compact too. The assets and animations are absolutely stunning, everything moves organically, nothing is static, and it just flows. Anyway, back to me being confused. I got excited at this point because everyone started moving, but turns out they just wanted a better view of the container. So essentially at this point, you're free to just start building, gathering resources and such. And whilst that isn't made clear, I also didn't play the tutorial, so I blame myself entirely. I began my experimentation by requesting a gate to be built, which it was. Look at him go. Although he did build it the wrong way round, which definitely wasn't my fault at all. Thankfully, after clicking on the item, I discovered the move button. Gosh, so intuitive. After the success of my glorious gate, I moved on to bigger and better things, namely a resource camp. Now to begin with, I played it safe with this being inside of the base, but after inspecting the camp's radius, this was clearly an awful idea. Thus, I used that super handy move button to place it closer to more resources. My brain is so huge. And with that, our wonderful humans started demolishing everything in the area, collecting the respective resources. Due to my enormous amount of faffing, it was already nighttime, and my goodness was I quaking in my tiny shoes. Until I realised this night would be zombie free, which was a good job because we are poorly prepared at this point. Safe in the knowledge that no brains would be eaten tonight, I set my mind to adding a hauling post, allowing our resources to be carried around in the cutest of wheelbarrows. With the radius of this being so large, I could happily keep this within the base walls. And thank goodness for these folks with the wheelbarrows, because she's certainly making no effort to organise. Something that is generally handy for survival is food, and for that we need a kitchen, for which I hugely underestimated the size required. As you can see, after placing the meat cultivator, yum, there was barely enough room for a modest cartwheel, so I created a separate dining area. With the dining room built, I could add a couple of dining tables. Realising my large extension still wasn't big enough to fit the feeding piles, also yum, I had to create another expansion, turning about 40% of our base into kitchen space. Okay, I'm exaggerating, probably about 10%, but that's not funny. With everything built, my dreams were immediately crushed at realising our cultivator needs power. Goodness, so demanding. And so begins the adventure of Barnaby figuring out how power works. It's simple when you know. The grid represents its power radius, and when highlighted orange, it isn't connected to anything. Thank goodness for future me. However, with our power pole now close enough to be connected, it doesn't reach the cultivator, so I had to do some rearranging. And just like that, it has power, a tiny man came to operate it, and food is being produced. Hurrah! Oh wait, no food is being produced. For that, we need vegetables and glowberries, neither of which are in the vicinity of our resource camp, so time for another one. At this point, I got distracted by what looked like a very tired tree stump. With food being harvested, our chef could get cultivating and food was being produced. Hurrah! Considering our main goal is to treat a Humby, we should probably build something that can treat a Humby. Whilst waiting for the very technically named science room to be built, I figured I should pop down some sort of defense, which came in the form of this snowball shooter. With that distraction out of the way, I added the 2 pieces of equipment required for our science room, a treatment chamber and a research desk. I gave our room some power before realising that our entire workforce were incredibly sleep deprived. Turns out humans need sleep? Who knew? I built a bedroom and filled it with beds. This is truly next level content. Just as everyone was getting some well-deserved rest and all was peaceful, I was reminded that this is a zombie game and zombies were attacking imminently. It was at this point all hell broke loose, and if I recall, it was when Tobias was being eaten alive. I thought to myself, wow, I'm hugely ill-prepared. Despite my best efforts, defences were not being manned, many staff were eaten, and I cried quietly in the corner for about 10 minutes. However, we must pick ourselves up, take what we've learnt and start over. The loss was simply too great. And so, I placed our main storage, watched the pretty animation, found a more appropriate place for the landing zone, shoved a resource camp amongst a ton of resources, and made a start on the essentials. I created a far more adequately sized bedroom and kitchen, and furnished them all accordingly. I even gave our lovely team a couch this time. So generous. You'll notice I also made everything look 4,000 times better than it did previously. I sure do know how to appease people. Are you appeased? When it came to power, I followed suit with a lovely perimeter cabling system. Isn't it just delightful? At this point, I realised things weren't being built for some reason, so went to investigate. Turns out Marjorie here was creating a right flippin' mess, and there was no adorable wheelbarrow folks to tidy up after her. So I swiftly rectified the shambles she'd created. Whilst that was being sorted, I placed a couple of defences by the gates, knowing full well that's where the zombies will be heading. Our snowball shooters use ice packs for ammunition, and those come from random junk like camping tents. So I set this one to high priority and watched Marjorie go to town on it with a wrench. You okay there, Marge? The last room we need for now is of course a science room. So I got this built, furnished and powered accordingly. And just in time too, as night falls, the question we all want the answer to is, are we prepared this time, or will countless humans die due to my negligence? Let's see, shall we? I kicked everything off with an immediate lockdown. Ugh, trauma. As you can see, this meant everyone fled back to the safety of our cozy little base. So far so good. Next, Sharon over here did a stellar job operating the snowball shooter. Nice one, Shazza. And just like that, out of nowhere, our first successful freezing. How exciting. Sharon's not hanging about, she's straight on to the next. By the end of the night, we have 3 frozen zombies and 1 zombie called Kristen who sticks around out of jealousy. At this point, we can lift the lockdown and Penelope comes to the rescue with a handy sack barrow to cart off our first zombie to the treatment chamber. Can you believe it? We have our very first Humby. I am genuinely excited by this. Professor Powell reminds us to take care of our new friend, else they might get angry. And we all know angry zombies equals death. Not ideal. And with that, this feels like a good time to wrap up our first look at Zombie Cure Lab. I don't know about you, but I'm quite excited about this and eager to play more. There's a heap of stuff on the roadmap to look forward to, and I'm excited to see this develop. Would you like me to revisit the game? I'm sure you're desperate to know the future of Marjorie and Sharon. I know I am. Let me know in the comments. Thanks again to Aerosoft for the key, and thanks to Therabytes for creating this extremely promising game. Zombie Cure Lab goes into early access on the 7th of December, and you can wishlist it right now on Steam. Link in description. Catch you in the next one.